जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था जिंदा.
All peoples of the world come from one source, one origin. How, yes, I know there was evolution and things like that, and eons before things there were galaxies colliding and big bangs, many things. But the world as we know it seems to have come back about 5,000 some years ago. We trace as best we can our lineage back there, but the whole human family comes from that one atom there. To say several things. There's a unity to the family. To say that if one was to kill a person of that, it's if you're killing the whole world because everyone is unique in the image of God, in the image of Adam for that. And so that is the beginning. Already today, in the synagogue, we have this, the beginning for a whole Jewish world outlook, a unity of creation, a one God where there's not a rivalry of gods, not a God of one country against another country. There's a whole creator of the whole world that theoretically puts together a theme for the unity of the whole world. Theoretically, I say, because it's never practical, that's left to the world to come out there. It's already hinted at, already in the Bible. Because it says, God created this world to be done. That's what it says in Genesis in the translation. He created this world not all together there, not altogether complete, but to be done. There are things to be done in this world. There are places to go about, things to be looked at, ideas to be explored, technologies to be developed, things to be looked at. There's going to be places fraught with danger in this quest, but that's what the life is about here. That's what creation is on its way. Something we have to be very realistic about when we're talking about peace is indicated in a word, and just the two letters of the word that indicates it, the creating of man. What we read today, Vayitzer ha'adam. God created him, but it has two letter yuds there, the small letter Vayitzer ha'adam. It could be written with one letter. Why is it grammatical having the two letters there? Our sages say, again with the rabbinic interpretation of the text, that what we are talking about in creation of man is that human beings are created with a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara, a good inclination and a bad inclination. The good inclination is one for love, for kindness and that. The bad inclination is for greed, injustice, hatred, power, domineering, all sorts of things. But they're both created by God. And the evil inclination is not necessarily bad. What if you are greedy and that? Well, why don't you go out and be greedy and direct it toward a good cause? Instead of raising money for yourself, raise it for a project. Put your energy for that into that. If you want to fight and are pugnacious about things, fight for a good cause. Fight for injustice. In other words, you can use those negative energies in the right way as long as they're directed in the right way. They both come from God. This is something we have to note about in history. We cannot be naive about this. And people's thoughts are constantly involved with this. And there's thoughts of the world were evil from their very youth and that God wanted to destroy the world there. But no, we found no, we're able to do it. So we do have these evil inclinations within us. Society brings things out. It brings out things in the media, brings out lust, it brings about aggrandizements about things. We have to be able to get a hold of these things, be able to master these things. On our personal level, on our community level, and then ideally on the whole world level, what we have. We always have to be concerned about religious truths, religious ideals, peace, love, justice, very good thing, marvelous things. But we also have to be realistic about the structures of power in the world and how religion takes a position towards those. And I'm going to make this a test for all the religions here tonight, all the religions you find, to see if the religion, including the one I'm representing myself, holds up to that religion. How do you deal with power? It says in Deuteronomy, it says, we are talking about justice, shotrim b'shotrim. You shall put before your gates officers and judges. Both of them, officers and judges. If you just put judges at your gates, they might be able to decide the law very well. They might be able to give very eloquent arguments about the law. But if it's not ultimately enforceable, and it cannot ultimately bring about a change of things, what good does it do? If you have phony justice systems, improbable, impossible, unactualizable justice systems, what good do they do? On the other hand, if you have only officers and no justice, no judges, no judicial system, that becomes a police state, and there are obvious abuses of that. So you have to get those two together. Show treatment between officers and justices. I'm going to suggest a book that's going outside of my tradition. It's a Christian theologian, Paul Tillich. Wrote a book a number of years ago. I mentioned this book. It's very succinct. It's a short book, and it was also one of the favorite books of Martin Luther King. He said he was tremendously inspired by this book. It was called Love, Power, and Justice. Paul Tillich. Let's see if you've got it in the library here. About 100 pages, not hard to read. He's a bit hard as a philosopher, but easy to follow that. Love, Power, and Justice. What does this mean? It means we have to have all of those. I see people where I am in Halifax many times. I'm on an interfaith council there. And some groups come there, and they have lovely ideals. It's beautiful. Such beautiful souls come there. And they do things. They've got such lovely ideas. There's meditation. There's all kinds of marvelous things. But there's no way to actualize that. There's no understanding of how to bring that out into a larger social framework. There's no way that they have to confront adversity and evil when it comes about. And so this is what we have to have. Something that is only involved with power, as I said, it could be abusive, and then you have to have other things to do it. But you have to have structures of power to be able to use correctly by religious institutions, by religious ideals, to be able to have world peace together. You have to have great, declarations of human rights, seeing the people in God's image, but you also have to have UN peacekeepers, various types of alliances. They're going to be able to enforce that in the right sort of way. This is a big challenge to us. We can find many examples where it doesn't go to the point of that. All religions nowadays are facing tremendous challenges with the way the world is becoming, with the corporate governments of the world. It's beyond nation states anymore. It's international companies running things. There's a whole threat of secularization that comes from various intellectual currents, whole ways of things. We're all being challenged by this. And so, as we come here tonight to think about this, we've got a lot to think about, a lot of tough questions to ask us. Are we just having vapid religious ideals that don't have any concrete application anymore? Or do we have something that can really make them go with things to see in that? Let me just leave it at there. We'll see if we make sense with questions afterwards. Thank you very much.
The Reverend Norman McPhee was born in Cape Breton. He graduated from St. FX in 1954, studied in Toronto, and was ordained a Roman Catholic priest on June the 1st, 1958. In 52 years of ministry, he spent 43 years in various parishes throughout Cape Breton. He also spent 8 years in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and 1 year of study in Chicago. Currently, he's a parish priest in Glace Bay with 4 parishes. Father Norman McPhee.
We had a priest at one time, and he was notorious for giving long sermons, very long sermons. But at the beginning of each sermon, he always took off his watch and put it on the pulpit. And one day this man was there with his grandson, and the grandson said to his grandfather, "And Grandpa, what does it mean when he takes off his watch and puts it on the pulpit?" And his grandfather said, "It doesn't mean a thing." Anyway, I took off the watch. I'll try and just stick with this. I think it's important that we look at our concept of God. We are people who believe in one God. And this one God sent us Jesus Christ as our Messiah. And so our whole faith is centered around Jesus Christ, the Messiah sent by God. And what is our concept of God? Well, we see God as a God of love. In fact, that's the definition. If someone says, "What is God?" we'll say, God is love. God is love itself. Everything he does is done out of love. God is pure love itself. Now, how does that bring us into the whole idea of peace? It was interesting. I was talking to a man, and I told him I was going to say a few words at this symposium on peace. What would you say? I asked him. He said, talk about Gandhi, talk about Gandhi. He's the world's great example. Well, fortunately, someone did talk about Mahatma Gandhi. He said, he's the world's great example of peace. Well, Jesus Christ is also known to us as the Prince of Peace. We call him that. At Christmas time, we always say, well, our Prince of Peace. When you read the New Testament, and I've checked it out, the 88 times the New Testament speaks of peace. Just imagine. It's probably more than that. But I checked it out one day, and I found 88 times the New Testament speaks of peace, the importance of peace for us. Now, when Jesus Christ spoke to the people, his main platform was, you know what it is, Christians do, the kingdom of God. He spoke about the kingdom of God, a kingdom of justice and love and peace. That was the main platform of Jesus. Now, to arrive at this peace, it meant we're first of all working for justice. We'll never have peace if 2% of the world owns 50% of the world's property. There'll never be peace. We have to work very, very hard at justice, some way sharing. And over the years, of course, greed has worked into things, and it has caused great division and many, many problems. So we have to work very hard at justice. That's what Jesus wanted us to work at. And fortunately, in our diocese here, we had the Ahmadiyya movement. And that movement has spread all over the world, and it has worked on working for justice. That's a good start toward peace. And of course, to have peace, we need to have love. Love is what holds things together. Love is what keeps us going day after day. I just had a marriage this afternoon, and the couple and I discussed that issue of love, how important it really is. That patience and kindness that people got to show to each other, the respect. So, I guess we have to do exactly what Jesus told us, to work for peace, but justice and love always come first. And then we arrive at peace. That's so very, very important. Now, in this matter of working for peace, Jesus Christ gave us one of the great examples of the world, I think. When Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, he made it very clear to us that if we want to peace in the world, we must be servants. We must serve each other. We don't try to have power over other people. That's not the idea. Jesus, in a very simple way there, like a servant, washed the feet of his disciples. It even surprised the disciples. In fact, Peter said, "Lord, you'll never wash my feet." And the Lord said, "Yes, I must." As an example for the world. And what an example that has been over time. Jesus Christ, the King of the universe, sent to us by God as the Messiah, and here he is washing the feet of his disciples. It's a wonderful example for all Christians to look at. So,
जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था जिंदा